Hello, once again, and welcome to another great episode of Uncanny Media, the show. It's me, your good buddy Spider, feeling kind of introspective. Introspective. I've learned some new things about myself recently, and about how this whole enterprise of mine, this whole Uncanny Media thing, why it exists the way that it exists. And we might get into that tonight. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. I don't know. I was trying to come up with a central topic to this video, and there's just a lot of things going on, and there's also not a lot of things going on, if you know what I mean. There's things I could talk about, but there's also things that are just not really all that interesting. And some of it's rehashed, some of it's repeats. It's almost like a syndicated show tonight. I don't know. I don't want to talk about the same stuff that I've been talking about the past few weeks, but some of it's going to require some updates, some of it isn't. I don't know. We'll see what we can figure out. So, hello. Welcome. We have surpassed 5,000 downloads of Uncanny Media, the show, of this podcast. And I have you all to thank. So, thank you so very much for tuning in every week. The audience is small compared to, like Rogan or compared to whoever else is out there doing big podcasts, but we're getting bigger. We are increasing our size and our reach and our influence, and you people are the best because you have decided to take at least a few minutes, if not the full hour, out of your day each week to tune in and listen to me talk whatever nonsense I've got. And I'm humbled. I am appreciative, I am grateful, and I'm humbled. So, once again, I've said it so many times already this episode. Thank you. Another great accomplishment we have going on is that in a couple of weeks, as of this recording, on August 30th, 2026, it is the 8-year anniversary. I know that's a weird, like, in between. Like, why wouldn't you just wait till 10? Why didn't you do it at 5? Whatever. Excuse me. I wasn't paying attention to the time frame, but it's the 8-year anniversary of the first episode of This Uncanny Earth. And This Uncanny Earth was my first. It's a tough description. It was not my first time on the radio as far as the internet goes. It was not my first time on internet radio. My first time on internet radio was as a guest host for the show that will not be named for legal reasons, of course. Um, and then I eventually went on to become the permanent co-host for that show for about 4 years, give or take. But This Uncanny Earth showed up towards the end of that because, of course, my buddy Rob, he got in touch with me. He was like, I want to do. You're in radio, right? You're in radio. I want to do radio, and I want to talk about paranormal things. I want to talk about aliens and Bigfoot and historical, biblical mysteries and all kinds of things. And I was like, all right, well, you know what? I know what to do. Just you stick with me. We'll hook you up. I'll get you a show on the network that my show, which wasn't my show, of course, I was the co-host, but regardless, semantics, will get you on this network. And I convinced the owner at the time that it was a good idea because I had plenty of good ideas. Not to toot my own horn, toot, 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 but I had a lot of good ideas because at the time we just had that show, but we were trying to diversify. We were trying to get into festivals and we were trying to get into merchandise. We were trying to get into a lot of different things. And I said, hey, why don't we just add a new show? My buddy here has an idea for a show. Why don't we add that on a day that we don't have the main show? And they were like, well, yeah, fine. But they never really believed in it. They'll say now, revisionist history, that, oh, yeah, we loved having them on the show and blah blah blah. But I have the text messages to prove it that they didn't. The owner of that network, and I use the term network loosely because it never grew to that point. It stayed one show as much as like I had separate shows under the umbrella because I was trying to do that. I was trying to make it a network of different shows of different people so that everyone could succeed because the more things you have involved, the more ways you have to generate interest and the more the name gets out there if the name is attached to everything. This is going to come up in a minute. You're going to see the point I'm making. But this Uncanny Earth, I was like, hey, it's going to be a good show. We had a good first episode. We had a good first few episodes. I don't remember how many episodes we had before the owner of that network freaked out, threw a fit over something really kind of meaningless, which was basically just an excuse. Because this person was going through, and it still continues to this day, goes through some mental health issues. They're not entirely stable, right? They're not all together in their mind, which is not an indictment. I'm not saying anything. I'm not trying to insult them by saying that. It's a fact of life. They are not put together up there, which is why they attacked me last year around this time with their lawyers. Um, but so this Uncanny Earth didn't last on that bare bones network. And so we left. This Uncanny Earth getting removed from that network was the catalyst for me leaving the network after 4 years, which is why it fell apart. It fell apart completely because the owner had a weird obsession with me. He still does. And it shut down for a number of years, and then it came back, and then it shut down again, and now it came back, but now it's also shut down for another year. It's the same pattern from this person. Again, I don't want to focus on the negative. I don't want to just badmouth this other person because they are doing enough to tarnish their own image in their own way. They don't need me to do it for them. But we went independent. Because I knew the tools at that point that I needed. I knew how to run the show. I knew how to set everything up, and we've been producing episodes since then for 8 years. We've gone through several metamorphoses, to use a big word. We started on Spreaker, which is what this podcast is on right now. This is kind of back to the roots. This is the bare bones original. This is how we used to do things. And it's effective and it works. But we wanted to do more. So we moved on from the audio only format and we moved into a video podcast format, which moved to YouTube and Twitch and various other places. I don't remember the exact time that we did that. I know part of it had to do with the various conference programs we had to use because we used to use Google Hangouts, which was mostly okay, and then sometimes it got real bad, but for the most part it was okay. And then Google Hangouts shut down, so we had to move on, and we moved on to StreamYard. I think we tried Skype, but Skype is still awful. Skype is not great. It's owned by Microsoft now, and I think they've actually phased it out. I don't know if Skype even exists anymore. I don't remember. I know it wasn't a great fit and it didn't work very well, so we didn't use it. So eventually we settled on StreamYard, which is what we've been using since. And these are not endorsements per se. These are not like, none of these people sponsor us. We're not sponsored by Spreaker or Google or StreamYard, but these are just the things that we're using right now that have been effective. We moved on to StreamYard, and that's where we've been since. We've been a video podcast for a couple hundred episodes. We're coming up on almost episode 400 pretty soon. The next season, it's not numbered because we didn't start numbering the seasons until recently, because we didn't start doing seasons until recently. But the current newest season of This Uncanny Earth, which you can find on YouTube, by the way. Look it up. Will be on September 5th. But we are going to be posting some videos, a video montage, a lot of little videos on leading up to the 30th of August in tribute to the fact that we've been here for 8 years. So if you have been a watcher or a listener of my other show, This Uncanny Earth, for all of this time, by all means, if you don't mind, record a little videos talking about your favorite memories or your favorite things about This Uncanny Earth. It doesn't have to be very long. It can be like TikTok format, that kind of thing. And use the hashtag Uncanny Family. Uncanny Family. And we will attempt to collate all of these videos and everything into a montage of some kind because we're just pleased to be here that long. Like it's amazing for a podcast to last that long. Just like it's incredibly humbling that this podcast has come as far as it has. I didn't expect it to last this long because I typically have problems with continuity sometimes. I have issues where I'll start a project and I'll run it into the ground and then I'll run out of steam and then I won't have any energy left for it and then it'll go by the wayside. And this has outlasted that because I've pushed myself to do that. I've made sure that I always have something to talk about. I'm not generally a talker at home. I don't talk like this at home. I don't just jabber on and on and on. You might be surprised based off of these podcast episodes. You might think, man, this guy talks a lot. But I don't, to be perfectly honest. I'm a relatively reserved person at home. I talk with my family and we have some good discussions, but I'm not I don't know why I'm saying it that way either. I'm in some kind of weird accent mood. I'm not Tamatonga. Nah. Everybody's lost now. Everybody's like, what are you even talking about? I am not a verbose individual under normal circumstances. This is the most talking I usually do in a day on an episode of the show. So you're welcome. You're welcome. Excuse me. So the 8 year anniversary of This Uncanny Earth, August 30th, 2026. We'll probably still mention it when it comes out in a couple years for the 10-year anniversary, because that'll be a big deal. That'll be a huge deal. And once again, I thank everybody for tuning in and for supporting and for listening. And there's a cat scratching my arm. Ouch. He's attacking me because he's a bastard. You jerk. Anyway. Ow. Ow. You're biting me now. Thank you. Now I've got some kind of hiccups. I've got some kind of hiccups. What do we talk about? What are we going to talk about tonight? There's a few things. People are still complaining, for one, about the new Halo remake, the remake of the first Halo game. But we're not going to go in depth on that because I've already covered that top to bottom, and there's nothing really new involved with that. We've talked about the local wildlife. They're still freaking out. They're still falling apart. They're still fragmenting. They they're sticking to their guns in an almost literal sense because they don't know what to do with themselves. But they're falling apart. Speaking of local things that have nothing to do with that, they are refinishing the road outside my house. Well, we're on a corner. My house sits on the corner. It shares the corner with my neighbors. Me and the neighbors have houses that are super close to each other. We have a driveway that's essentially a shared driveway, but it's wide enough that you can fit cars side by side, so we don't have to take each other's space, which is nice, but it's still one large driveway across two houses. We're the corner houses, and they're doing the road down and the road adjacent, which is doing the road like east to west and the road north south on the corner, which needed to be done because especially the especially the north to south road. That road has been completely awful since we moved in, and all they've ever done is fill it with tar and stones every so often when there's potholes every year, and it's been needing refinished to look like an actual road for the longest time. And I hope they do it right and they do it well because they're doing that and then the adjacent Caddy Corner Road, which is the main road that runs through here. It's well deserved, honestly. We've been waiting for this for a while. I've sent in many complaints about the potholes because what are you gonna do? Fill them yourself? I don't have tar. I don't have stuff to fill the potholes myself. And apparently, there's rules in this city that say if you do try to fill the potholes yourself, they can fine you because since you're not a city employee, you're not responsible for city infrastructure, and by going out of your way to do it, it's illegal. it's it's somewhat illegal, so you cannot fix the potholes yourself, even if you're capable of doing so. Which I get, I do understand because the people that they have to fix that stuff have insurance with the city and they're liable and they have liability, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And an individual citizen doesn't. So if you screw it up and somebody else's vehicle gets messed up because you screwed up the road, the city will be held responsible because this is the city's roads. It's a public street. And they'll be mad because you put them on the spot and you put them in that position. So they're going to make you pay for it. So it's nice that they're finally taking the opportunity to deal with it themselves. I don't know if it's going to be done well. I've seen how these guys fix these roads, and a lot of times it's just a slap job. I don't know. We'll see. They're they're union people and they get paid union wages and they don't care. Oh, I can hear it now. Everybody's like, "Oh, are you against unions, Mr. Spider? Are you a union buster? Are you for corporate America?" Let's talk about that for a minute. Back when there were no laws of any kind regulating the business world, regulating hard labor, you had child labor, you had unsafe working conditions, you had a lot of things that the government was not taking care of. You didn't have OSHA, you didn't have anybody regulating any industry. What were the people to do? Organize into unions. Use your strength as a number. Use your collective bargaining. There were more labor employees than there were management, and that's why it worked. You could overpower the management if it came down to it. If you walked off the job site, they'd have nobody to do anything. Their paychecks would get hit. Unions made sense at the time. Okay? Now, now we have labor laws. Now we have OSHA. And I'm not going to say that it's infallible. I'm not going to say that there is absolutely no need for unions, but in this modern age with so many worker protections in place outside of the sphere of the unions, a lot of the unions have gotten uppity. A lot of the unions have gotten to the point where they're just as bad as the corporations. If you take a new job at a place that's got a major union influence, and if you don't join the union, you're screwed. You don't get help with anything. You lose out on contracts. You get treated like garbage. You just, if you're not a part of the union, which means paying union dues because the unions are their own little corporate entities now. That's something you may not know. Unions are their own little corporate entities. You have to pay them. Union dues are a thing. And if you choose not to do that, you're the enemy. You're a scab. You're a union buster. You're a person who can't be trusted. And back in the day, that used to matter, but now it doesn't. Now it's just a way to ostracize people. It's a way to force people to pay extra money into an organization that's just as bad as the corporate people over top. Most unions nowadays are unnecessary, are more negative than positive, and it's just, I know people are going to be yelling at me about it. This is one of those controversial things. They'd be like, "Oh, if we didn't have the unions, then the corporations would still be whatever." Maybe, or maybe the fact that we have labor laws and OSHA and all these other things, that maybe unions have outlasted their necessity. Now, that's not to say if we did get rid of unions completely, would the government then overturn some of those laws and allow corporations to be giant douchebags again? That's a possibility, in which case the unions would need to come back in their original form, which was a way to protect the worker. That's what a union was meant to be. It's meant to protect the workers by banding them together. You're stronger in numbers than you are individually, and that's the whole point. And I can get behind that, but I can't get behind the modern current situation of most unions that aren't there for the individual workers. They're there to make themselves money because they're mini corporations. They might label themselves as nonprofit organizations, but even a nonprofit organization needs capital. They need funds, they need things to survive and to pay the people who run the nonprofits. A union is like that. That's why you have the union dues. So I'm not in favor of unions these days because I don't think they're necessary, and I think they cause more harm than good. And I think their leaders are arrogant and filled with the same sort of greedy, let's get this money ideals that the people in charge of the corporation are like. I think it's the same thing. Now, it wasn't before, and it could change again, but this is what it is now. So, union busting is not a thing. When a corporation says, oh, yeah, the union's looking to strike, well, we're going to do this, it's not union busting anymore because the unions are a negative feature. They're not what they used to be. They're not as necessary because they don't act in the way that they should be. They don't act in the favor of the employees the way that they should anymore. And like I said, I'm going to get some flack for that. I'm going to get some people who completely disagree, and I get that. I spent a lot of time looking into this kind of thing. I've spent a lot of time, I hesitate to use the word researching because anytime you use that when you make a controversial opinion, people's like, oh, researching, that means you went to Reddit or YouTube or whatever. You did your own research. I had a lot of that during the virus years between 2020 and 2023. If you mentioned the word researched, then people would look at you like, oh, then you're ignorant. You looked up a YouTube video where some jerkwad told you this with no sources. You looked up this and you didn't have. But when I research things, I look up actual information. I look at both mainstream news and underground news, and I look for peer-reviewed studies. I look for what people are saying on social media. I look at a lot of different factors, and I collate all that data to find the common threads, to find out what is true and what is just a bunch of nonsense. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I have all of the answers, but I don't just take one source and say, absolutely, this is the way it is. If I went online and I saw that somebody said, hey, NASA is bullshit, we never went to the moon, and if I believed that 100%, just accepted that right off the bat, of course, that'd be one thing. That'd be me being ignorant because I didn't cross reference that with anything else. By the same token, if I just went, well, NASA says this, and I believe it, that's again being ignorant. You have to look at the data that NASA has. You can't just accept their statement for you. You have to look for the data. Data is so important because different people will interpret data in different ways. And the trick is finding the commonality in the data that shows this is a consistent result from the data. Okay? This is a consistent answer that comes not from just this bit of data, but also that bit of data, and also that bit of data. And consistency is key. Consistency is so important in everything. If you're doing any kind of research, if you're doing any kind of study, if you're doing anything that involves information of any kind, you have to look for consistency. You have to look for the things that match, the things that are continuously said by different people and different organizations, because that's where the truth is going to be. Now, that can always change because that's the scientific method. The scientific method is you research, you get a result, you accept the result if it matches the research. But if some research later on comes along that challenges that result, you investigate that, you check that, because that could mean that result that you found is not correct anymore. It was based on a previous understanding. And if that result changes, then you follow up the same thing. You go through the whole process and you see why it changed. You see if it's necessary for it to change. And if it is outdated, you replace it with new information. If the new information does not invalidate the original point, then you don't throw it out the window. It's reinforcing. But if it does invalidate, then you find out why. You look at the why, you look at the reasons, you compare everything. And if the new data is overwhelming, then you throw out the old result and take the new one. It's the scientific method. It's always evolving. That's how information works. That's how learning works. That's how data works. And so many people just are not interested in following the data trail. There's there's a lot of things on the internet right now that are 100% fake. And you might look at me like, "Well, obviously, Spider, what are you talking about? Where have you been for the entirety of the internet?" But let me delve into that a little bit more. Okay, let me get into that a little bit more thoroughly here. On Facebook, which again is another site that is not like what it used to be. It's gotten way out of control with just random bullshit, basically, to not put too fine a point of it. But there are many people, and this is a thing that's happened throughout the life of the internet. There are many people who have created false profiles, either to remain anonymous, which is one thing. Okay, I get it. You're trying to protect yourself. Or to stir up debate, which can go either way. It can be helpful or harmful. Or simply to troll people. And the third one is what happens most often when people have multiple accounts. They simply just troll people. They come up with opinions that are out there that maybe they don't even share these opinions, but they want to put them out there to see who's going to argue about it, who's going to be upset, who's going to be mad, and then they laugh and they belittle and they, you know, that's how trolls work. But there's a vast number of troll accounts that are fixated on the issue of tipping. And if you're from the United States, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you're from outside of the United States, you may wonder, or you may not, because tipping is a thing that happens in some other places, but mostly it's a United States thing. If you're unsure what I'm talking about, tipping is when you go out to eat or when you go out to buy a product or to a store or whatever, and the person that helps you, the customer service representative, you give them a few extra bucks. You give them a tip. Like, let's say you go to a restaurant, right? You order some food. The waiter or the waitress or the wait person, whoever it is, they're on point. They're doing a great job. They get you your appetizers right when you want them. They talk you through they're friendly, they're nice, they're anytime you need a drink refill, they're right there. It might be a busy night and they've got a lot of other customers to take care of, but they're making sure that you're taken care of along with those other customers. They're putting in the work. So you tip them. You give them a few extra bucks. You write that in on the receipt. You say, hey, I'm giving some extra money for this person. Or you leave some extra dollars on the table for them, right? Tipping. It's it's not required. The thing is that some background information. The places where tipping is acceptable here in the United States, like most restaurants, not fast food because fast food pays minimum wage. But the places like a high scale restaurant where they have waiters and waitresses and other people delivering your food, they don't pay minimum wage. They pay a reduced wage because by law, you're allowed to do that if you also allow your servers and your waiter people to collect tips. It's a weird oversight in the OSHA kind of system that we're talking about. But if you allow your employees to take tips, then you work under the assumption that they are going to be tipped and that their tips are going to make up the difference and that you don't have to pay them as much. So you can pay them less than minimum wage as required by law because the assumption is they're going to be tipped, which is a shitty assumption. It's outright awful because who knows who's going to walk through the door? You could get some super generous people that believe, hey, you know what? You've done a great job. It was a busy night. I know you were overwhelmed. Here's an extra 50 bucks. You're going to get people like that, but you're also going to get other people like, the food was dry, the drinks were late. I don't know. Here's $2 out of like $1,000 total meal out of 10 people that all ate. I'm just throwing out basic numbers. I'm not saying that every meal for 10 people in an average American restaurant is going to be $1,000. I'm just throwing it out there for comparison. But it's crazy to expect these people to subsist on uh, less than minimum wage because in Ohio minimum wage is like seven some dollars an hour. It's seven and some change, I think. I don't remember for sure. It's been a long time since I looked into it. But in a restaurant in Ohio that has waiters and waitresses and whatever, those people don't make minimum wage. They make maybe $2 an hour, $3 an hour, because the assumption is that they're going to be tipped, and the tip is going to make up their wages. And that sucks because you can never rely on the public to always tip. Tipping is a shitty. Tipping should be a luxury thing that happens if you are so pleased with the service you got, if things are just so above and beyond, if you've been treated like royalty, buying a TV or buying a salad or buying whatever, and you're just like, man, these people treated me great. I'm going to give them a little bit extra. Here's some for your pocket. Have that. That's what tipping should be. It should never be a way for a business to force the customer to help pay for the staff. It should not be that. It shouldn't. Tipping culture is awful. It's trash. It's ridiculously bad. And I'm not saying we should just get rid of tipping completely. I think tipping should always be optional. But in order for it to be fair and optional, all of the businesses need to pay at least minimum wage. But if they did that, everything would be more expensive. McDonald's would be more expensive. Burger King would be more expensive. Taco Bell would be more expensive. But here's the problem with all that. All of those things are already more expensive. Okay? Fast food, retail, all of these things are already more expensive because of everything else that's going on in the world. We've got tariffs, we've got economic depression in some states, we've got a lot of things going on, and corporations are not putting any more money in their employees' pockets. Whether or not they need to is beyond the point. Whether or not they're making enough money is beyond the point. They are not paying their employees a correct wage, which is why they rely on tipping. And tipping should always be optional. And so to circle back to my original thing about social media, there's been a severe epidemic of fake profiles, people making fake profiles, sometimes with AI, sometimes not. And they'll post a story where they saw, oh, I went to a restaurant and there was a sign that said, you need to tip our servers 25% or don't even eat here and things like that. And you're a criminal if you don't pay 20% on your whatever. And it's all AI photos. It's an AI paragraph. And it's 100% designed just to get people to argue about tipping in the comments. That's it. It's rage bait. Rage bait is huge on the internet right now. Rage bait is like the number one. It's massive right now because people love to watch people argue online. And I don't get why. Because it just ends up being name calling. It just ends up being a bunch of people who don't know each other just yelling at each other for no reason and making assumptions about each other. They'll go to each other's profiles and be like, oh, look at your hair. Your hair is blue. You must be a blue haired liberal piece of shit. And oh, you're got a gun in your profile, you must be a Trump MAGA piece of shit, and it's so many assumptions that fly back and forth based on just one photo on somebody's profile. And then people get aggressive, people get mad, and that's how people get into trouble because then they'll start doxing each other. It's a sad, sad state of affairs. Rage baiting is such an issue on social media right now. Rage baiting because people think it's funny. People will deliberately go out of their way to drop a comment or a post or a discussion point that deliberately is meant to irritate people. And once somebody's hackles are up, they're going to attack it. They're going to attack it. And I hate it. I hate rage bait stuff. It just and the whole tipping culture thing has a huge rage bait component behind it now because people see that pisses people off. They see that as, oh, There's a big debate about tipping right now. Let's stir that pot. Let's stir that pot. The whole thing with the Halo franchise right now, there's a lot of people throwing out rage bait for that. Anything about gaming right now, anything about politics, anything that gets people really defending things that they like or that they don't like or whatever, there's a rage bait subculture for it, and it's out of control. And that's how you lead to swatting. That's how you lead to doxing. That's how you lead to all these things that are terrible about the internet. I'm surprised I haven't been swatted at some point, but that's because I don't put out my IP address right out for anybody to see it. I don't throw out my regular home address. I make sure I don't put myself out there in a way that people are just gonna be like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna look you up and I'm gonna find where you live and I'm gonna send the police to your house." It's a horrible, horrible thing to do, but it's so common now. Things like that are so common because people get so worked up about these kind of things. They get so worked up about their political candidates. They get worked up about their favorite video games. They get worked up about so many things that really are not important. Your family is important. Your mental health is important. Political stuff, yeah, on some level, it's important on a political scale. But as far as your individual day to day life, for the most part, 9 out of 10, it's not important. You can turn off the TV, you can turn off the news, you can turn off your social media. You can spend a week doing nothing to do with the news, with politics, with anything, and nothing will change. You can come back and everything will be exactly the same, which shows you that it didn't make any difference for you to jump on that post about Donald Trump is a da 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 da. Well, Joe Biden is a da 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 da. Kamala Harris is a blah 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 blah. This guy from the Pentagon is a blah 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 blah. None of that matters. You can have opinions. I'm not saying not to have opinions. If you think Donald Trump is a piece of shit, by all means, fine. Think that. Not, there's nothing wrong with that. If you think Kamala Harris is a piece of shit, by all means, think that. That's cool. That's fine. Whatever. But you don't need to take it personally to the point where you have to defend these people. These people don't need you to defend them. They don't need you to defend them. And they're not going to care that you defend them. They're not going to check the comments. Trump is going to take a cursory glance at various comments when he posts something. Be like, see, look at the people who like me. Look at the people who hate me. I don't care. It doesn't matter. He's going to do whatever he wants to do, and nothing that you say is going to change that. Same thing with Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Ted Cruz, Chris Christie, any of these people. They don't care what you have to say about them. They may pretend, they may make a big deal about it, but they don't care. They're going to do whatever they want because that's what they do. And that's a shame because people have elected these folks to do things that they wanted them to do. They wanted them to change. They wanted them to make a change in the way that the country functions. They wanted to make things better. And none of those people that I mentioned are doing anything to make things better for you. Not a single one of them. Hakeem Jeffries, not doing shit for you. Mike Johnson, not doing shit for you. Trump, not doing a goddamn thing for you. Obama didn't do a goddamn thing for you. And you can say, oh, well, look at Obamacare. Obamacare screwed people like me. It may have helped you. It didn't do shit for me. But I'm not going to hold that against him as a person because that doesn't matter. Because why would I do that? That'd be really obsessive. He's not even in the chair anymore. What difference does he make? Nothing. Nothing that he has done now has changed my life now. You know, so again, we get so wrapped up in these things. We get so wrapped up in these issues that don't matter because none of these people care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about shit but staying in the seat that they're in and looking like a celebrity or making a bunch of money or doing whatever. Their motives don't have anything to do with you or me or anybody. We're just nobodies. We're just numbers on a spreadsheet, on a voting list, in a Gallup poll. That's all we are to these people. And I don't play that game. I don't. I stopped playing that game a while back. I don't vote for these people. If I vote at all, it's always for somebody independent, and it's only for somebody who looks like they could actually make some kind of a difference if they actually manage to get in, which is very rare. Beyond that, I don't vote for the two party system. I don't vote Democrat or Republican. I won't. I absolutely won't. I will not perpetuate a system that does not work for me. And it's crazy that we got to this point of discussion from how we started. See, this is what happens when we have a podcast like this where anybody can talk. If you have a podcast, you can talk just like this. If you want a podcast, jump on my Uncanny Media Network. I will give you a podcast. I will let you use my resources. I will let you use my advertising. I will let you use my platform. If you've got things to say and you can talk about it for at least 45 minutes to an hour weekly, I'll let you do that. I will let you do that. Get in touch. Get in touch with me, and I will let you speak your mind, whatever you have to say. As long as you're not explicitly hateful. Like, as long as you don't come in and say, let me tell you the problem I have with the Jews. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Or, let me tell you the problem I have with the blacks. Don't do that. Don't do that either. Or, let me tell you the problem I have with the whites. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like, that's not something I'm going to let you put on my network. That's hateful. But you've heard me talk about things. You know the things I talk about. By all means, if you got opinions about that kind of stuff, yeah, bring them in. Just don't talk hateful about people. I don't hate any of the people I've just talked about. I don't hate Obama. I don't hate Trump. I don't hate Kamala. I don't hate Ted Cruz. I don't hate any of these people. I don't know them personally. I don't. Most of what they do is bullshit because they're trying to accomplish a goal. You know, it does no good for me to hate them. It makes no sense for me to put my energy into hating these people. It just causes harm to me. It causes harm to my psyche. It would cause harm to my mental space. And I'm not looking to do that. My mental space is really great right now. I'm not looking to throw a bunch of stuff in there and stir the pot and make it worse than it is because it's pretty good. I'm in a great spot. I've learned a lot about myself over the last year, over the last few years. I'm continuously growing. I'm continuously evolving as a person. And sitting around spending my days hating politicians is it's beneath me. And that's not to say that I'm better than anybody or to say that I'm better than them or that I'm better than you if that's what you want to do. If you want to sit there and hate Donald Trump, okay, that's your own choice. If you want to devote that kind of negative energy to just absolute hating this man, by all means. Or Joe Biden, okay, whatever. Or Kamala, or Ted Cruz, or Chris Christie. Those are only the names that I pulled out of my brain right now. Whatever. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to disagree with certain things that they do, and I'm not going to be quiet about it. I am going to talk about it, but I'm not going to sit and just spew hatred about it because there's no point. It's not worth that expenditure of energy. It just isn't. There are so many other things you could be doing in life that matter. There are so many other things you could do that are more fulfilling. So go do that. Do that instead. Does that mean we should all be completely apolitical and not pay any attention to what these politicians are doing? No, because there are things that they're doing that fuck us over, like daily. And those kind of things should be brought up and should be fought for. But what do? You have to pay more attention to the people who want to be in those spaces. You have to pay more attention to the people running for seats. Stop voting for Republicans. Stop voting for Democrats. Completely throw out both of those parties. Just say, you know what? Screw you guys. You've done nothing. Neither one of you has had my best interest in mind. And if a large bulk of people went out of their way to vote independent in a way that mattered, to put somebody in that really would make a difference, yeah, maybe the first person wouldn't be able to do much because there'd still be a Republican House and a Democrat Senate or vice versa. But the more independence you put in, the more it dilutes that power base. The more it spreads it out, the more it forces these people in the two party system to be on the defensive, to actually think, oh, you know what? This is going to be tougher than I thought. We might not be able to accomplish this. We're going to need help from these independent people. And if we're going to need help from independent people, we're going to have to make sure that they know that we're going to have to give them something in exchange. It's going to have to be a lot more give and take. And so I don't know. I don't know how feasible any of that is, really. Because historically, independents have never done very well. I remember the Clinton, Bush, Ross Perot race. I remember that. Ross Perot had a good following, didn't make it. I remember Bob Dole. You remember Bob Dole? Bob Dole and Al Gore. I remember that. So, I don't know. Maybe I live in a fantasy world. Maybe I live in just this fantasy world where if the right people ran and the right people voted for those people and the numbers were just right, then we would make a difference. Maybe I'm just in this fantasy land where I think that all these things are going to matter and all these things are going to make a difference and the prices are going to go down, the gas is going to go down, the groceries are going to go down, the wages are going to go up and we're going to enter this golden age of American just prosperity, not supremacy because we don't need to go around the world and bomb everybody else. We're going to focus on us right now. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's idealistic. Maybe it's a bunch of bullshit and it's never going to happen. But that's what I envision. That's what I hope for. Will it happen during my lifetime? I don't know. I'm in my early 40s right now, so I still have a long ways to go. I would like to think that I still have another 40 plus years to go and I'll at least get into my 80s. I would like to think that. Maybe that's optimistic. Maybe I've become in my old age an optimist. I wouldn't have believed it if you told my younger self that I would become an optimist in my 40s. But maybe that's me now. I don't know. What do you think? Has any of this made any sense? I feel like I've just rambled on about something for just the last 30 minutes, 40 minutes almost. And I'm not sure how we got onto the topic, and I honestly don't care. I, it doesn't matter. We've arrived here. We've talked about it. We've hashed it out. We talked about unions, and did the unions get us into this? I don't know. I have no idea how we got onto this topic. I don't know. But we're about towards the end. We're about towards the end here. I got nothing else to say. We talked about the upcoming 8-year anniversary of This Uncanny Earth. It's August 30th, 2026. If you would like to talk about your favorite memory from This Uncanny Earth, which is separate from the show here, okay? Go on YouTube, This Uncanny Earth. You can listen to all the episodes there. If you've been a guest or if you've been a listener or if you've been connected to us in some way and we've met you in potentially West Virginia or other parts of Ohio or even in Pennsylvania, let us know what you think. Tell us if this uncanny earth has impacted you in any way, and we would love to hear about it. Make a short video, TikTok style. We'll collate all of that together. And thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for putting up with me. Putting up with me. I feel like I got Canadian there for a second. Thank you for putting up with whatever I have to say on a weekly basis. I do appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that tunes in. You matter. Or maybe you energy, if your matter is a little bit spread out. Science joke, quantum mechanics goofness. Um, I don't know. I'm running out of steam. That's all I got for you. We're gonna get out of here. Um, I don't know what we're gonna talk about next week. Who knows? I always kind of collect things during the week to talk about. And tonight's episode really was kind of off the cuff. This was just various things I pulled from the back of my brain. I didn't have a whole lot going on this week, I'll be honest. But we got a good discussion out of it. There's always depths to plumb from my mind, I like to think. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for putting up with me. I appreciate you. I don't know how many times I've said that tonight, and I can probably say it several times more. Thank you. Have a good night. We're out.